Samuel Hartwell preferred the river trail home. The Rio Blanco ran quiet this time of day, and a man could think without interruption. Banking ledgers and loan schedules filled his mind as his horse picked its way along the familiar path. Then he saw the body. A woman lay crumpled near the water's edge, dress torn at the shoulder, dark hair spilled across the grass. Samuel dismounted fast, knees hitting dirt as he reached for her neck. Pulse. Thank God. Her face showed bruising along the jaw, and one shoe was missing. The signs read clear robbery, violence, abandonment, ma'am. He touched her shoulder gently. Can you hear me? She didn't stir. Samuel scanned the area and spotted scattered belongings, a broken reticule, trampled flowers, wheel ruts from a stagecoach, the afternoon stage to Silver Creek. He'd heard talk in town about increased bandit activity on that route. A gunshot cracked from the ridge above. Samuel's head snapped up. More shots followed, distant but too close. The outlaws were still working the area. Town was 2 hours away through open country. Dr. Morrison's office, safety. The sheriff all unreachable with bandits between here and Cooperton. The woman stirred, moaning softly. Her eyelids fluttered but didn't open. Samuel made his decision in the space of 3 heartbeats. He brought his horse closer and retrieved his canteen. Ma'am, I need you to wake up now. He dampened his handkerchief and pressed it to her forehead. There's danger nearby. We need to move. Her eyes opened blue, startled, afraid. Easy now. Samuel said, You've been hurt, but you're safe for the moment. Can you stand? She struggled to sit up, wincing. Her hand went to her torn dress, and shame colored her bruised face. Samuel immediately shrugged out of his coat and draped it over her shoulders. The stage, she whispered. They took everything. I know, but they're still close, and we can't go to town. Can you ride? She nodded, though uncertainty filled her expression. Samuel helped her to her feet and steadied her against his horse. The mare, Copper, stood patient as ever. He handed the woman his canteen. Drink first. Then I need you to ride to the Triple Creek Ranch. He pointed northeast. Follow this trail for 3 miles. You'll see a gate with 3 pine trees. That's the entrance. I don't understand, she said. Why would they? Tell them Samuel Hartwell sent you. They'll ask no questions. He helped her into the saddle, adjusting the stirrups. Mrs. Chen will see to your injuries. You'll be safe there. The woman looked down at him, confusion and gratitude mixing in her eyes. You're giving me your horse. What about you? I'll manage the walk. You need speed more than I do. Another gunshot echoed, closer this time. The woman flinched but gathered the reins with surprising steadiness. Something in her face determination beneath the fear caught Samuel's attention. Why are you helping me? She asked. Samuel met her gaze. Sometimes we help because we can, not because it makes sense. Now ride. She hesitated one more moment, then pressed her heels to Copper's sides. The mare moved into a steady lope, carrying the stranger toward safety. Samuel watched until she disappeared over the rise, making sure no pursuit followed. Only then did he notice her shoe lying in the grass. He picked it up, worn leather, small, mended once at the heel. He should leave it, should start walking, should forget this entire afternoon. Instead, he tucked it into his coat pocket and began the long walk home. The sun dropped lower, painting the sky orange and gold. Samuel's boots raised dust on the trail. His mind kept returning to the woman's eyes, brave despite everything, alive in ways that stirred something he'd thought long buried. 2 hours to town. He'd have plenty of time to think. May Brennan's hands shook on the reins, but the horse beneath her moved steady and sure. The stranger's coat smelled of tobacco and leather. His words echoed in her mind. Tell them Samuel sent you. She didn't know any Samuel. Didn't know why a well-dressed man would sacrifice his horse for a robbery victim he'd never met. The world had shown her its cruelty this morning. Now it offered unexpected mercy. And May didn't trust the shift. But the gunshots behind her had been real. The danger remained real. And this Samuel person had looked at her with something other than pity respect. Perhaps. Or simple human decency. The trail wound through scrub grass and scattered juniper. May's body ached everywhere. The bandits had struck just after noon. 3 masked riders who'd stopped the stage with rifle fire. They'd taken her trunk, her reticule, even her mother's silver locket. When she'd fought back, one had backhanded her hard enough to see stars. She remembered falling, remembered hands rifling through her pockets. Then nothing until waking beside the river with a stranger's face above her. The trail crested a small rise, and May spotted 3 tall pines marking a gate. Relief flooded through her. She urged the horse forward. The ranch spread before her like something from a picture book. A main house built of honey-colored stone, barns and outbuildings arranged neat as pins, corrals holding horses that gleamed in the afternoon sun. Everything spoke of care, prosperity, permanence. May rode through the open gate. A Chinese woman emerged from the house, wiping her hands on her apron. An older man with silver hair stepped out of the barn. "Help you, miss," the man called. May's voice came out rough. "Samuel Hartwell sent me. He said—" Her throat closed. The adrenaline that had carried her this far suddenly drained away. The woman hurried forward as May swayed in the saddle. "Dutch, help her down. Carefully now." Strong hands lifted May to the ground. Her knees buckled. But the woman caught her. "I'm Mrs. Chen," the woman said. "This is Dutch Anderson, the foreman. You're safe now." She studied May's face, her torn dress, and understanding filled her eyes. "Come inside." "Dutch, Sita Copper." "That's Mr. Hartwell's horse," Dutch said. Concerned. "Where is he?" "Walking to town," May managed. "He gave me the horse. Said I needed speed." Dutch whistled low. "That's Samuel for you. Always did have a straight compass." He took Copper's reins gently. "You did fine, miss. Real fine." Mrs. Chen guided May into the house and through to a spacious kitchen. The warmth inside made May realize how cold she'd become. Shock. Probably. She'd read about it but never experienced it firsthand. "Sit here." Mrs. Chen pressed May into a chair near the stove. "I'll get water heated for washing. Then we'll see to those bruises. I should explain." May started. "I don't want to impose—" "Mr. Hartwell said, Mr. Hartwell's word is law on this ranch," Mrs. Chen said firmly. "If he sent you here, you belong here. Now hush while I work." May hushed. She had no energy left for argument. Mrs. Chen moved efficiently, heating water, gathering clean cloths, pulling out a tin of salve. Within minutes, May found herself being cleaned and tended with professional skill. "Were you a nurse?" May asked. "A mother?" Mrs. Chen replied, "Same thing, mostly." She applied salve to May's bruised jaw. "This will sting." It did, but May barely noticed. The kitchen's warmth, Mrs. Chen's gentle hands, the simple fact of safety, it all felt surreal. The stage to Silver Creek. May said, "I had a teaching position waiting. My trunk had all my credentials, my books. We'll send word tomorrow." Mrs. Chen said, "Right now, you need rest." She helped May to her feet. "There's a room you can use, small but clean." May followed her down a hallway and into a modest bedroom with a narrow bed, a dresser, and a window overlooking the corrals. Clean sheets, a quilted blanket, a pitcher of water on the dresser. "Thank you," May whispered. "I'll leave as soon as—" "We'll talk about that later." Mrs. Chen said, "Sleep now." She closed the door softly. May sank onto the bed, still wearing the stranger's coat. Samuel Hartwell's coat. She didn't even know what he looked like. Clearly the shock and fear had blurred details. But she remembered his voice. Steady, calm, kind without being soft. She remembered how he'd looked at her, giving her dignity when she had none left. May lay back and closed her eyes. The room spun slightly, but the bed held her safe. Outside, horses nickered in the corral. Dutch called something to another ranch hand. Normal sounds. Peaceful sounds. For the first time since the robbery, May allowed herself to cry. Samuel reached his house well after dark, feet aching and mind restless. The housekeeper had left supper warming on the stove, but he ignored it. He went straight to his study and lit the lamp. The shoe sat on his desk where he'd placed it. Small, worn, practical, a schoolteacher's shoe, probably. The woman had mentioned Silver Creek, which meant she'd likely been heading for the teaching position advertised last month. Samuel poured whiskey and settled into his chair. The amber liquid burned going down but didn't quiet his thoughts. He'd sent a complete stranger to his private ranch, to the one place he kept separate from his banking empire, from Cooperton's society, from everything that demanded his constant attention. Triple Creek had belonged to his father, then briefly to Samuel and his wife Catherine, then to Samuel alone after fever took her 6 years back. He rarely visited anymore. The ranch reminded him of everything he'd lost: family dinners, shared plans, the future they'd imagined. Dutch ran the operation competently. Mrs. Chen kept the house. Samuel paid the bills and stayed away. Until today, when instinct had overridden caution. "What were you thinking?" he said aloud. But he knew. He'd been thinking about brave eyes and a frightened face, about dignity maintained despite trauma, about how the woman had asked why he was helping instead of simply accepting rescue as her due. Catherine's voice echoed in memory. "You can't hide from life forever, Samuel. Someday something will find you." He'd laughed then, holding her close. "Nothing needs to find me. I've got everything right here." But that was before fever and death and the cold years that followed. Samuel had built walls carefully, methodically. He fulfilled his duties, managed his bank, earned respect without offering friendship. Safe, controlled, alone. The shoe mocked him from the desk. Samuel picked it up and turned it in his hands. He should have Dutch return it when the woman left for Silver Creek. She'd recover, claim her position, build a life. Their paths had crossed once by accident. No need to cross again, except he wanted to know her name. Wanted to know if she'd reached the ranch safely, if Mrs. Chen had tended her injuries properly, if she'd found the room comfortable. Wanted to see those brave eyes again when they weren't filled with fear. "Foolish," Samuel muttered, but he didn't put the shoe away. Instead, he placed it beside the lamp where he'd see it each time he worked at this desk. A reminder of something, though, of what? He wasn't entirely certain. The rational choice would be to send word tomorrow asking after her health, then arrange transportation to Silver Creek. Tidy, appropriate, distant. Samuel sipped his whiskey and stared at the shoe. Catherine had always said his rationality would be the death of joy. "Let yourself feel, Samuel," she'd urged. "Life's too short for constant calculation." She'd been right about the shortness of life. He made a decision. He'd wait 1 week before visiting Triple Creek. Long enough to respect the woman's privacy and recovery. Long enough to prove he wasn't acting from sentiment or improper interest. Long enough to be proper. But not so long he'd forget her face. Samuel finished his whiskey and extinguished the lamp. The shoe remained on his desk, a small piece of chaos in his ordered world. He left it there and climbed the stairs to bed, knowing sleep would be long in coming. Outside, the Rio Blanco flowed on through darkness, carrying the day's events downstream. But some things, Samuel suspected, didn't wash away so easily. Some meetings changed the current of a life whether a man willed it or not. 7 days later, Samuel rode back to Triple Creek with a trunk strapped behind his saddle. The stage company had recovered it from the bandits' camp after the sheriff ran them down. Samuel had claimed it on the woman's behalf, signed papers, paid fees. Now he approached his own ranch feeling strangely nervous. Dutch met him at the gate, grinning wide. "Mr. Hartwell, been wondering when you'd turn up." "How is she?" Samuel asked. "Miss Brennan healing up real nice. Bruises are mostly yellow now. Mrs. Chen's got her working in the kitchen garden." "Working?" She insisted. Dutch's grin widened. "Said she wouldn't take charity. Mrs. Chen needed help with the preserving anyway, so she put her to work." Samuel found May in the garden behind the house, kneeling between rows of late squash. Her dress, borrowed from Mrs. Chen, he assumed was clean and simple. Her dark hair was pulled back under a kerchief. She looked up at his approach, and recognition flickered across her face. "Mr. Hartwell," she said. Standing quickly, dirt streaked her hands and apron. "Miss Brennan." He dismounted and removed his hat. "I brought your trunk. The sheriff recovered it." Her expression transformed. "My trunk, truly. Most of your things are intact. Some clothes were taken, and I'm afraid the silver locket, that's my mother's." May's voice caught. "It's gone." "I'm sorry." She nodded slowly, composing herself. "At least my teaching credentials are safe. My books, I can still." She stopped, seeming to remember her manners. "Thank you for retrieving it. That was very kind." They stood awkwardly. Samuel hadn't prepared what to say beyond returning her belongings. The week's distance evaporated, and he found himself studying her face, still bruised but healing, still showing that same determined spirit. "Will you stay for dinner?" May asked. Mrs. Chen made pot roast. "It's the least we can offer after—" "I'd be honored," Samuel said. The words emerging before thought caught them. Dinner proved unexpectedly comfortable. Dutch and Mrs. Chen treated May like family already, drawing her into easy conversation. Samuel learned she'd come from Ohio, age 26, teaching for 8 years before deciding to head west. The Silver Creek position had promised adventure and a fresh start. "Do you regret coming west?" Samuel asked. May considered the question seriously. The robbery was terrible. Being left by the river was terrifying. But she gestured at the ranch, the table, the people around it. "This kindness, I never expected this. So no, I don't regret it." Samuel found himself watching how lamplight caught in her hair, how her hands moved when she spoke. Mrs. Chen caught his eye and smiled knowingly. After dinner, May walked him to the porch. She carried his coat, cleaned and mended where the shoulder had torn. "You saved my life," she said, handing it to him. "I never properly thanked you." "You saved it yourself," Samuel replied. "I just pointed the direction. You gave up your horse, walked for hours, sent a stranger to your private home without question." May's voice grew quiet. "That's not nothing, Mr. Hartwell." "Samuel," he said. "Please." "Samuel." She tested the name. "I'm May." "May!" He liked how it sounded. Simple, strong, honest. They stood in comfortable silence while the evening settled around them. Somewhere in the barn, a horse whinnied. Dutch called goodnight from the bunkhouse. "Will you come again?" May asked. "For Sunday dinner." Perhaps Samuel hadn't planned any of this. But looking at May's hopeful face, he found himself nodding. "I'd like that," he said, riding home through the darkness. Samuel realized the ranch had felt different tonight, alive somehow, warm, like it remembered what family sounded like and was grateful for the reminder. The shoe still sat on his desk at home. He'd have to return it now. But somehow, Samuel suspected he'd be finding other reasons to visit Triple Creek. Other reasons named May. 6 Sundays passed like chapters in a book Samuel couldn't put down. Each week he rode to Triple Creek with some small excuse papers for Dutch to sign. A book he thought May might enjoy, news from town. Each week he stayed for dinner and found himself reluctant to leave. Autumn deepened into late October. The cottonwoods turned gold along the creek. May's bruises faded completely. leaving behind a woman whose strength showed more clearly each time Samuel saw her. She'd transformed from the frightened figure by the river into something remarkable. She helped Mrs. Chen with cooking and cleaning, but also taught reading to the younger ranch hands in the evenings. She knew horses and wasn't afraid of work. She laughed easily, spoke thoughtfully, and moved through the ranch like she belonged. This particular Sunday, Samuel arrived with a collection of poetry books from his library. Whitman. May's eyes lit up as she examined the volumes. "I haven't read Leaves of Grass since college." "Thought you might appreciate it," Samuel said, pleased by her reaction. Dinner conversation ranged from books to politics to ranch business. Dutch told stories about Samuel's father, and Samuel found himself sharing memories he'd kept locked away for years. May listened with genuine interest, asking questions that showed she understood the gaps between his words. After dinner, Mrs. Chen shooed them out of the kitchen. "You two go sit by the fire. Dutch and I can handle these dishes." Samuel caught Mrs. Chen's deliberate smile and realized he was being maneuvered. But May had already settled into the chair near the hearth, so he took the seat opposite. The house grew quiet around them. Fire crackled softly. Through the window, stars appeared one by one in the darkening sky. "Can I ask you something?" May said. "Of course." "Why did you send me here to your ranch specifically?" She met his gaze directly. "You could have left me by the river and fetched the doctor, or sent me to the hotel in town. Why here?" Samuel considered his answer carefully. "You'd been broken enough," he said finally. "Robbed, beaten, left for dead. It didn't seem right to parade you through town like some curiosity for people to whisper about. You deserved privacy to heal. Dignity." May's expression softened. "You saw me at my worst moment, but you still saw me, not just a victim." "I saw brave eyes," Samuel said quietly. "Fear. Yes, but courage underneath, that stayed with me." The fire popped, sending sparks up the chimney. May looked down at her hands, then back at Samuel. "The robbery took more than my belongings," she said. "It took something I'd believed about the world, that good generally outweighed harm, that I could trust the journey." She paused. "You gave that back. Not just safety, but faith." Samuel felt something shift in his chest. "I'm glad I was there." "So am I." May smiled. "Though I suspect fate had a hand in it. What were the chances of Samuel Hartwell riding that particular trail at that exact moment?" "Pure coincidence," Samuel said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Was it?" May tilted her head. "Do you believe in coincidence, Samuel?" He thought about Catherine's voice in memory, about the shoe he'd kept on his desk all these weeks, about how alive he felt sitting here in firelight, talking with this remarkable woman who'd entered his life through tragedy and somehow brought light with her. "I'm beginning to doubt it," he admitted. May held his gaze. "Good. Because I stopped believing in coincidence the moment you gave me your horse." They sat in comfortable silence, the fire warm between them, outside. Wind moved through the cottonwoods. Inside, something equally profound moved through the space, connecting two hearts learning to trust again. When Samuel rode home that night, the ranch disappeared behind him, but May's presence lingered. Her laugh, her questions, the way she'd looked at him by the firelight, all of it felt dangerously close to hope. And hope, Samuel knew, was the most terrifying thing of all for a man who'd learned to live without it. Late November brought the first serious snow and uncomfortable realities. Samuel sat in his Cooperton office reading a letter from board member Harrison Webb when Dutch appeared in the doorway, hat in hand. "Problem?" Samuel asked. "Depends on your view." Dutch settled into the chair. "There's talk in town about May staying at the ranch." Samuel's jaw tightened. "What kind of talk?" "The usual small-minded nonsense. Questions about propriety. A single woman living at your property without chaperone." Dutch's face showed disgust. Harrison Webb's wife has been particularly vocal. Samuel crumpled Webb's letter. The timing wasn't coincidental. Webb had written expressing concern about appearances and suggesting Samuel either clarify his intentions or remove the source of gossip. May's done nothing wrong, Samuel said. Course not. But you know how this town operates. Webb's already hinting it looks inappropriate for a bank president. Samuel stood and paced to the window. Outside. Snow fell steadily. He'd known this would come eventually. Cooperton thrived on gossip, and an unmarried woman at his ranch provided excellent fodder. The problem was his own confusion. His Sunday visits had become essential to his week. May's presence had awakened something he'd thought dead. But was he ready to act on these feelings, to risk his heart again? To offer May something real instead of this undefined companionship? There's another complication, Dutch said quietly. May got a letter yesterday. From Silver Creek. The teaching position is still available if she wants it. Samuel turned sharply. She's leaving. Hasn't decided, but the letter gives her an out. Honorable employment, her own life, away from gossip. Dutch stood. Thought you should know before you ride out Sunday. After Dutch left, Samuel stared at the falling snow. He could let May go to Silver Creek. Clean, simple, proper. She'd build a new life, free from scandal. He'd return to his careful solitude. Everything would go back to how it was, except nothing would be the same. Not now. Not after 6 Sundays of discovering what warmth felt like again. But what right did he have to ask her to stay? His fear still ran deep. Caring meant risking loss. Opening his heart meant vulnerability. And Samuel had spent 6 years building defenses against exactly that kind of pain. Sunday arrived cold and gray. Samuel rode to the ranch carrying dread like lead in his stomach. May met him at the door, and he saw it in her face she'd made a decision. Dinner felt strained. Mrs. Chen tried maintaining conversation, but tension filled the room. Afterward, Samuel found May alone in the front room. Dutch said you received a letter, he began. From Silver Creek, yes. May's voice was carefully neutral. The teaching position, they're willing to hold it through January. She met his eyes. Long enough for me to decide. Samuel knew what he should say. He should encourage her to take it. Wish her well. Promise to remember their friendship fondly. Safe words. Distant words. Instead, he heard himself say, perhaps you should consider it seriously. A fresh start. Your own life. Away from... He gestured vaguely. Away from complications. May's face went still. Complications. The gossip in town. People questioning your presence here. It's not fair to you. I see. Her voice cooled. You're worried about appearances. I'm worried about your reputation, Samuel said, knowing even as he spoke that he was handling this badly. How considerate. May stood. Well, you needn't worry. I'll write to Silver Creek tomorrow accepting their offer. I'll leave after Christmas. May, thank you for your hospitality these past months. Mr. Hartwell, you've been very kind. The formal address cut deeper than anger would have. I'll make sure Mrs. Chen has no complaints about my work until I leave. She walked out, leaving Samuel alone with the wreckage of his cowardice. He rode home through falling snow, knowing he'd just made the worst mistake of his life. He'd tried to protect May from gossip and himself from pain. Instead, he'd wounded them both. The shoe still sat on his desk. Samuel picked it up, remembering the day he'd found its owner by the river. He'd acted without hesitation then, trusting instinct over caution. Why couldn't he do that now, when it mattered most? The blizzard struck mid-December without warning. Samuel had ridden to Triple Creek despite threatening skies, unable to stay away despite the awkwardness that had settled between him and May. 3 weeks of strained Sunday dinners had nearly broken him. Dutch met him at the barn. Storm's coming fast. You should stay the night. I can make it to town, Samuel said. Not if you value your life. Dutch took Copper's reins. Already sent the hands to the bunkhouse. This'll be bad. By the time Samuel reached the house, snow fell in blinding sheets. Wind howled around the eaves. Mrs. Chen had prepared the guest room, then tactfully retired early with Dutch to their quarters in the east wing. Samuel sat by the fire, listening to the storm rage outside. He should sleep, but restlessness kept him in the chair. Around midnight, May appeared in the doorway wearing a borrowed robe, her hair loose around her shoulders. Can't sleep either, she asked. Storm's loud. That's not why. May crossed to the other chair. We've been dancing around this for weeks. I'm tired of it. Samuel looked at her. May, you told me to leave, she said, voice steady but hurt underneath. After weeks of Sunday dinners and conversations and moments I thought meant something, you sent me away. To protect your reputation, or to protect yourself. May leaned forward. I fell in love with this ranch. Samuel, with the work, with Mrs. Chen and Dutch, with the Sunday dinners and the quiet conversations by this fire. With you. She said it simply, courageously. But I won't stay where I'm not wanted. I won't be pitied or cause scandal, so tell me the truth. Why did you really send me away? The fire crackled between them. Outside. The blizzard screamed. Inside. Samuel felt his carefully built walls crumbling. Because I'm terrified, he said finally. Because the last time I let myself love someone, she died and nearly took me with her. Because 6 years of safety felt easier than risking that pain again. He met May's eyes. And then you appeared by the river, and something in me woke up. Every Sunday you made me feel alive again. Every conversation reminded me what I'd been missing. And that terrified me more than any bandit could. May's expression softened. So you chose fear over happiness. I chose your safety over my selfishness. That's not your choice to make. Samuel. May stood and crossed to kneel beside his chair. I'm not Catherine. I'm not going to die of fever and leave you alone. But if you push me away because you're afraid, I'll leave anyway. And you'll be alone by choice, which is somehow worse. Samuel looked down at her brave face, her honest eyes, and felt something break inside him, something that needed breaking. I gave you my horse that day, he said quietly. Because keeping you safe mattered more than convenience, more than propriety, more than anything. His voice roughened. Turns out I gave you more than I understood. A path straight into my life, into my heart, and I don't want you to leave. May, I'm just scared, she finished. I know. So am I. The world already showed me how cruel it can be. But then it showed me you. Someone who gave without asking. Who protected without demanding. Who made me feel safe enough to love again. She took his hands. What are you offering? Samuel, because I need to know if I'm staying or going. Samuel realized he was at a crossroads more significant than any he'd faced. He could retreat into safety and loneliness, or step forward into risk and life. Catherine's voice echoed one final time. Let yourself feel. I don't have a pretty answer yet, he admitted. But give me until Christmas. Let me figure this out properly. May studied his face, then nodded slowly. Christmas. But Samuel, don't make me wait just to let me down gently, if you can't love me. Tell me now. I already love you, Samuel said, the truth emerging raw and unguarded. That's what terrifies me. May's smile was gentle, knowing, patient. Then figure out how to be brave enough to keep me. She stood and moved toward the hallway, pausing at the doorway. The storm will clear by morning. Everything looks different in daylight. After she left, Samuel sat by the dying fire and watched the blizzard rage beyond the window. The worst of the storm would pass by dawn. But the real storm, the one inside him, was finally breaking. And sometimes, Samuel thought, storms were necessary to clear the air, to wash away what no longer served, to make room for new growth. By morning, he'd know what to do. Christmas Eve dawned clear and cold. Samuel rode to Triple Creek with his heart in his throat and certainty in his chest. The past week had brought clarity. Fear would always exist. But living half a life to avoid pain was its own kind of death. He found the household decorating the main room with pine boughs and ribbon. May stood on a chair hanging mistletoe while Mrs. Chen directed placement. She looked down when Samuel entered, and something passed between them, question and answer in a single glance. "Could everyone gather for a moment?" Samuel asked. "There's something I need to say." Dutch came in from the kitchen. The ranch hands filed in from outside, curious. Mrs. Chen and May exchanged glances. Within minutes, everyone stood assembled in the decorated room. Samuel removed his hat, his heart hammered, but his voice came out steady. "Most of you know how May Brennan came to this ranch. I found her by the river after the robbery. Gave her my horse and sent her here for safety." He looked at May, who stood very still. "That was September. It's December now. And in that time, something happened I didn't expect." May's eyes widened slightly. "This ranch has been empty for years," Samuel continued. "Not of people. Dutch and Mrs. Chen have kept it running beautifully, but empty of life, of purpose, of the warmth that makes a house a home." He turned to address everyone. May brought that back, not by intention, but by simply being who she is, honest, hardworking, kind. She took work instead of charity. She gave more than she received. She made this place remember what family sounds like. Mrs. Chen smiled through sudden tears. Dutch nodded approvingly. "There's been gossip in town," Samuel said. "Questions about propriety. People wondering about a single woman living at my ranch." He looked directly at May. "So I'm here to clarify my intentions publicly, before witnesses." May's hand went to her throat. "May Brennan, you came to Triple Creek because I sent you. You stayed because you earned your place through dignity and work. But I'm asking you to stay now for a different reason entirely." Samuel crossed to stand before her. "Because this house is better with you in it. Because Sunday dinners are only meaningful if you're at the table. Because I spent 6 years hiding from life, and you reminded me what living feels like." His voice softened. "I'm asking you to stay as my wife, if you'll have me." The room held its breath. May's eyes filled with tears. "You're sure?" Terrified and sure. Samuel said, "Those aren't mutually exclusive." She laughed through tears. "I'll stay." "Forever?" Samuel asked. "Because I'm a stubborn man once I make up my mind. I don't do things halfway." "Forever." May agreed. "For as long as you want me." "Then you'll stay forever," Samuel said. "Because wanting you is the one thing I'm absolutely certain about." The room erupted in cheers. Mrs. Chen hugged May, crying openly. Dutch pumped Samuel's hand, grinning like a fool. The ranch hands whistled and clapped. Later, after cake and celebration and countless congratulations, Samuel and May stepped onto the porch for air. Snow blanketed the ground, pristine and peaceful. Stars filled the sky like diamonds scattered on velvet. "You proposed in front of everyone," May said, still seeming dazed. "Had to make it official. No more gossip, no more questions, just truth witnessed and acknowledged. Very proper of you." May took his hand. "Though you could have asked me privately first." "Would you have said yes, obviously?" Samuel pulled her close. "I gave you my horse, my coat, my canteen. Seemed appropriate to give you my heart and home in front of the people who will share them with us." May looked up at him, love and amusement mixing in her expression. "You're a sentimental fool, Samuel Hartwell." "You're fool," he corrected. "My fool," she agreed, and kissed him beneath the winter stars. Inside, the house glowed with lamplight and warmth. Outside, The world lay quiet and clean. And between them, something new began, not the ending of old wounds, but the beginning of healing made permanent through choice, through courage, through love that had found its way home. Spring came to Triple Creek like a promise kept. May stood in the kitchen garden, planting herbs while Mrs. Chen directed from the porch. The wedding was planned for next month, but May already felt married in all the ways that mattered. She'd transformed the ranch house through small changes, curtains in the windows, books on the shelves, a piano in the front room that Samuel played surprisingly well. The house had welcomed her additions like it had been waiting for exactly these touches. "Ready?" Samuel's voice came from behind her. May turned. He stood in his good suit, holding his hat. "For what?" "I want to show you something." He offered his hand. They rode together to the Rio Blanco, to the exact spot where he'd found her 6 months earlier. The river ran high with snowmelt, rushing over stones in cheerful chaos. Wildflowers dotted the banks in purple and yellow. May dismounted and walked to the water's edge. The last time she'd been here, she'd been unconscious and bleeding. Now she stood in sunlight, wearing an engagement ring, filled with joy instead of fear. "It's strange," she said. "Coming back here." Samuel joined her. "Wanted you to see it like this. Beautiful instead of terrifying." May studied the rushing water, the flowering banks, the cottonwoods leafing out overhead. "The worst day of my life happened here, and led to the best," Samuel said. "Led us both here." May corrected. She took his hand. "To this moment, to each other, to home." They stood together while the river flowed past. The water that had witnessed violence now reflected only sunlight and spring growth. Time and nature had transformed the site of trauma into something new. "I kept this," Samuel said, pulling something from his pocket. May gasped. Her shoe, the one she'd lost that terrible day, sat bronzed and mounted on a small wooden base. "You kept it all this time, from the first day. Couldn't seem to throw it away." Samuel smiled. "Thought it might be fate's way of reminding me that some meetings, however accidental, are actually destiny finding its way home." May took the bronzed shoe, feeling its weight. "This is completely ridiculous." "I know. And sentimental beyond reason." "I know. I love it." May laughed and kissed him. "You're absurd, Samuel Hartwell." "Your absurd husband-to-be," he corrected. They mounted and rode back toward the ranch, behind them. The river continued its eternal flow. Ahead, Triple Creek waited with lamplight in windows and smoke curling from chimneys. Home. May glanced at Samuel riding beside her and felt her heart swell with gratitude. She'd come west seeking adventure and found trauma instead. But trauma had led to rescue. Rescue to sanctuary. Sanctuary to love. The world had shown her cruelty. Then it had shown her, Samuel, proof that cruelty didn't have the final word. That kindness existed. That strangers could become family. That the worst moments could transform into doorways leading to unexpected joy. "What are you thinking?" Samuel asked. "That I'm grateful." May said simply, "For robbers and rivers and men who give horses to strangers." "That's an odd collection of gratitudes." "It led me here. To you. To us." May smiled. "I wouldn't change a single moment. Painful as they were." Samuel reached across and took her hand. They rode the rest of the way in comfortable silence. Two people who'd found each other through chance and chosen each other through courage. At the ranch, Mrs. Chen waved from the porch. Dutch called greeting from the barn. The horses in the corral nickered welcome. Everything familiar. Everything home. Everything exactly as it should be. May dismounted and looked at the house honey-colored stone glowing in afternoon sun. Smoke rising from the chimney, the garden showing first green shoots of spring. Her house now, her home. Her family. Samuel came to stand beside her. No regrets. May thought about Ohio, about the teaching position she'd never claimed, about the life she'd planned that had dissolved in violence and fear. Then she thought about Sunday dinners and fireside conversations and a man brave enough to love again, despite his terror. Not a single one, she said, and meant it with her whole heart. They walked inside together, closing the door on the past and opening it to the future, a future neither had planned, but both had chosen. And in Samuel's study, on his desk beside the lamp, the bronzed shoe sat as permanent reminder. Sometimes the worst moments become the best beginnings. Sometimes strangers become family. Sometimes the path that leads away from danger leads straight home.